Alright, so before we begin, I have a bug fix to do because I found a bug with, well, basically when you've made a map that is more than one horizontal or vertical cells, and then you might save it and then go back to it another time. If you make another floor and the horizontal and vertical values don't match the original values for that map, and you try and save it, you can get a crash. So we're just going to fix that now. So all we need to do is go into SCR load map, and then near the bottom I've made a new region called bug fix for adding new floors, blah blah. And inside that, all I've done is I have set horizontal and vertical pieces to whatever the size of the last floor grid that was loaded, which should be correct. So that stops the crash basically. Okay, so the point of this episode is to give ourselves a bit of control when we are making random battlescapes, because right now it just picks kind of any random old map and to see if it will fit into the battlescape. But what if we, for example, want to limit the amount of buildings in a city? You can have other designations as well, or other map types that you want to use. So basically by the end of this episode we'll be able to generate random maps, but with specified parameters. We can also, we'll be able to increase the size and width of the battlescape as well, stuff like that. So the first thing we want to do is go into the create event of OBJ controller, and in our setup enums region, we have a new enumerator called emap type. Every map when it gets created is going to have not assigned set to it, and the actual map types we're going to be using today are going to be field and building as a demonstration. And then we're also going to have a new global array called global.mapTypeText, and it's just going to show us the string values for those map types that we've made. Okay, so obviously right now we have lots of maps, but none of them have an assignment. And what we want to have is we want to incorporate the map type into how we are saving and loading the maps already. But to begin with, like I said, none of our existing maps are going to have a map type, so we're going to tackle that next. If we go into SCR external load, this was the code we had before. All I've done, I've literally added a new region at the bottom. And what it's going to do, it's just going to check to see if a file exists, which is going to store our map types. And if that file exists, then great, it just gets loaded normally. If the file doesn't exist, then it gets created, and any existing maps get an automatic assignment of unassigned. So I'll show you what I mean. We'll go through it. So like I said, we're going to check to see if the map exists first of all, if the file exists, sorry. So get the file name, does it exist? If it does, then we are going to get the string. We're actually going to use JSON this time because global.mapTypes is going to be an array. When I started this series, I tended to use grids and lists, but there's actually no reason why we can't just use arrays, for that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you how to use that as well, at least in this way. So all that's going to happen on this line here is global.mapTypes is going to be a 2D array created from this string from JSON parse. If the file doesn't exist, then this is all of this. Let's get rid of this actually. all of this is going to run one time. So all we're going to do is, for as many biomes there are, get the biome list from all biome maps. And then for as many maps in that biome, we're going to add an entry into our 2D array and set it as not assigned. And that's it really. Okay, so now we have done that, we're going to give ourselves the ability to actually set the map type of a map. So to begin with, if we go into the create event of map editor, and all we're going to do is we're going to add a new variable called show map types, and we're going to set it to false to begin with. All it's going to do is, if it's true, then we are going to show like a list of map types to choose from, and we're going to be able to choose it with a click from the mouse. We're also going to disable the other map editor functions if this is true, which we're going to see in a minute. If we go into the step event, at the very top, as you can see, I've wrapped all of the existing code inside this if statement. So if show map types is false, then yes, do the rest of this stuff. And the matching bracket for this is all the way down here, and outside of it I have a couple of lines of code that are new. And all we're going to do is, if we press H, then we're going to toggle show map types. So if it was true, it becomes false. If it was false, it becomes true. And then in the draw GUI of OBJ map editor, I've added a new line on line 15 just to set the color to white for the current level and current map number, because what we do in this new region down here changes the draw color. So it's just to stop this flashing green and gray, stuff like that. So anyway, this is the new region for setting and seeing the map type of the current map. So we're going to get the current map type for the current map from here, which we you can see we made it in SCR external load. That was just to initialize it. This is going to get updated when we save maps as well. We haven't done it yet, but we will do. Text is going to be from our map type text array. It's going to be either unassigned, field, or building. And mouse X, mouse Y is just going to be these two functions. It's just it's a lot easier to type MX and MY than these two. And so at the very top left, we're going to see map type and whatever map type it equals. That's going to be displayed all the time. Then if we have pressed H and show map types is true, we're going to use a for loop, which is all of this, just to display all of the different assignments, the different map types we can give to our maps. If I equals the current map type, we're going to draw it in white. Otherwise, we're going to draw the assignment, the map type, in dark grey. These two lines here can be one line, but it's easier to kind of zoom in when it's two. Not all it is, literally, it's just checking to see if the mouse is over the current text that's being shown. For example, if we're drawing unassigned, if the mouse is anywhere over that word, then this is going to be true. Then when it gets to field, again, if the mouse is anywhere over the word field, this is going to be true. And so if any of these cases are true, then we're going to draw the text in green. And if we also press the mouse as well, we're actually going to be updating our new 2D array with that new map type. And then we're going to, this line just draws those available map types. So hopefully that's straightforward to follow, but we're going to see this in action now. So let's run the game. can see in the top left we have map type not assigned. If I now press H, not assigned is white because that's the current one. If I move over any of the map types, they turn green. If I click on field, the map type in the top left turns to field, and field turns white, not assigned turns to grey. If I press H again, then I can actually use the map editor as before. So this is how we're going to assign the different map types to different maps. But let's update the rest of the scripts before we actually use our new map types in our Battlescapes. Okay, so I don't know if you spotted it, but I left a line out in SCR external load. If we go into it now, I've opened a file on line 28 and totally forgot to close it here, which can cause problems. So this line is new. And speaking of new, we're going to be going there next in SCR new map. So here we go. Just after we add a new floor, we're going to add a new entry for the map type. So num is going to equal this. I just copied it from here. And all I'm doing, I'm setting the entry in a 2D array to not assigned for the map. And then in SCR delete map, it should be as simple as a single line. We're using the same position that we deleted from the list as the array to delete it here. And finally in SCR external save, I've added a new region here. So we get setting the file name, opening the file, using JSON to turn our 2D array into a string, and then we're just writing that string to a file and closing the file. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so now it is time to update our Battlescape object. Actually, the first thing we want to do though is to make sure we load the Battlescape room. So if we go back into the create event of OBJ controller, and then at the bottom, instead of having room, go to map editor, have it to the Battlescape room. So we're going to break down the way to do this in steps. I'm talking about how we're going to update the Battlescape object. Basically right now we can only make one map when we load the object because everything is in the create event. We're going to move it into the step and we're going to have a state system, and then when the state is create, we're going to create a map, and then it's going to go back into the ready state, and inside of the ready state is when we can press a button to make a new map. There's more to it, but that's going to be the first couple of steps. So as you can see here, just underneath this stuff here, I've got a new enumerator called e_bs, and we have create and ready, and then we're going to have a new variable called state and set it to create. And then in the step event of our object, we just had the camera, but we want to set ourselves up to have our state system. So all we're going to have is literally 2 if statements, one for create, one for ready, and get our regions ready for sticking our code into it. And that's step 1. Okay, so step 2 is in the create event of our Battlescape object. We're going to turn 3 of these variables, so everything except biome list, we're going to turn them into instance variables. So we're going to create them in the create event and then reference them in the step event. The reason we don't just create them in the step is because we don't want to keep recreating them. So we just get rid of the var, and that turns them into instance variables. And then everything from this line, bs_w equals 5, everything from this line to the very bottom, all of this, we want to copy it. So all of that, we want to copy it, and then you can either leave it commented out for now, just in case you need it again. But we're going to copy it, and then we're going to stick it into the create event. Into the step event. So let's go into the step, and then inside this region here, we're going to paste that code. So everything you copied should now be in here like this. If you minimize the regions, it should look like this as well. You'll have a yellow mark because biome list is still a local variable. We're going to do something a little bit different with that though. That's why we haven't made it instance variable. It's going to be a little bit different. So that's all you've got to do. And then minimize this region again. And then at the very bottom, just above the closing bracket for this state, we're going to set our state to ready. And that's step 2. Okay, so again in the create event of OBJ Battlescape, we're going to have 2 new regions. Don't worry, it's not a load of code. It's just setting up a couple of things. So obviously at the start of the episode, we have been setting things up so we can organize our maps into different map types. For now, it's just fields and buildings, but you know, obviously you're not limited to that. So we want to be able to generate maps, Battlescape maps, and we want to be able to give it parameters. So, you know, how many buildings there should be, how wide or high should the Battlescape be, should we just be using a single map, like a handcrafted map for the whole Battlescape, that kind of stuff. And so that's what these 2 regions are going to be about. So we already have this from earlier and this. So we have a new enumerator, Battlescape stats. So again, we can pick the biome. But basically, when we're in the ready state, we're going to have like a little GUI screen. And we're going to be able to choose the biome that we want, the width and height of the Battlescape, how many buildings we want to have in the map, and whether or not we should actually just be using a single map. So that's what these different stats are going to be for. And then there are going to be 4 values for each of these stats. We're going to want to know the actual value. So biome is going to be 0, 0, 1 or 2 because there's 3 biomes. Text, so we can actually see in the GUI, you know, what is this actual stat. So this would be biome, this would be width, height, etc, etc. And then we're going to be able to press left and right to change the actual value, but the minimum and maximum is going to be different for each of these stats. So we're going to set ourselves the minimum and maximum values in a minute. That's what all this stuff is for. And then here is our array, which is going to store all that data. So all we're doing literally is making a 2D array. The way I've done it here takes up less room than the way that I normally do it. There's probably a better way to do it as well, but I guess I'm still a bit of a noob with arrays in some ways. Anyway, so for the biome, then the actual stat is going to start off as a city. The text value is going to be biome. The minimum value is going to be 0, and the maximum value is going to be last -1, which is city again, I believe. Width, the starting value is 5. That's the text value. Minimum, maximum is 1 and 20. Same for height. Buildings, we're going to start with 2. We want 2 buildings, and then the minimum buildings can be 0 and the maximum 10. Obviously, you can just change these values to whatever you want. I've just kind of picked some arbitrary values. And map to use. So we're going to start off where we don't want a single map, which is going to be -1, and the minimum value is going to be -1, and the maximum value is going to be based on the size of the of how many maps there are in a particular biome. So we obviously need to update this if we change biomes. And then selected BS data is going to cycle between these when we press up and down. And then this second region, all we're going to do is create 2 lists and stick them in this array, and each of these lists is going to hold all of the map types for a particular map type. So there's going to be 1 list for fields and 1 list for buildings. If we don't use this stuff right away, it's just because I wanted to make sure we get all of the create event done first, so we don't have to keep going back and forward. So hopefully that's okay, not too confusing. Okay, so step 4, we're going to copy our line here for biome list. We're going to copy it, and then in the step event we've modified this region here. We have a new region. All it does, it just gets rid of any lists and grids there is still inside the Battlescape, and then we clear the Battlescape because the Battlescape can still have pointers to the floor grids. This is all just to prevent memory leaks, basically. Okay, and then we're gonna set BS biome as this line, and then we're gonna paste biome list in here like that. Okay, so we should be able to run the game and have a randomly generated map. We can't change it, it's just to make sure that the code is working, to make sure you're up to the same part that I am. And it works, but you can see we have like this weird visual glitch where any empty floors above the first floor have, like, you know, just what you can see here. That's because in the draw event of the Battlescape object, we check to see if an entry in the grid is -1, because if it's -1 then it's not a list. But we never actually set, when we create a grid for the Battlescape, we never actually set its default value to -1, which is why we get this visual glitch. You can also see I have more on screen at the same time. All I did is in room Battlescape, I've got a width of 1280 by 960 and the viewport is 640 by 480, and I doubled it to 1280 960. That's why I can see more. Okay, so how do we fix this? It's pretty simple. If we just go into our Battlescape object, in the step event, into our create Battlescape region, and then scroll down until we say fit, because this is where we're going to be creating the grid. So here, if I is greater than or equal to the size of the Battlescape, then we're going to create a new grid, and then as soon as we have created a new grid, we want to clear it so that every value is a -1. So now when we run the game, we don't have that strange visual bug anymore. Okay, so now we're gonna make a script, but it's just gonna have code that we've already got. It's just gonna save us some time later on. So go into this region, create Battlescape, and scroll down until we get to the pick random maps and see if they fit region, and then scroll down, and then this region here, does the map fit? We have a new script. All we have to do, you should have this code here where it says, let me just comment it back out, Control Shift and K. Basically all of this, and this one as well, sorry, all of this code you should already have. So it's up to here. So copy all of this, copy it, delete it, and make a new script called, or just type this for now, sorry. So type scr_does_it_fit. We're going to pass it the map XX, the map YY, the horizontal pieces, and the vertical pieces. And so make a new script called does it fit. And then inside it, we're going to just list those parameters like this, just to make it more readable for you later on. And then literally after this line, you can paste all of that code. This is what you copied and deleted. And then this last line is new. We're just going to return fits. We're going to actually make a second script as well to save time later on. So inside, just after this region, pick random maps and see if they fit. We have this other region called fits, which is going to convert the map into usable data for the Battlescape. This is what has been updated in this step. So all of this code we should already have. Let me just comment it out, like back in, sorry. So all of this from this line here. Let me just check that actually. Yeah, so inside if fits, this is the last, this is the ending curly bracket. We want to copy everything above it. And below if fits, so copy it. You can comment it out or delete it, whatever you want to do. And then type this. So build Battlescape. We're going to give it a starting cell X, a starting cell Y, temporary list of grids, temporary floor grids, horizontal pieces, and vertical pieces. And inside the script, actually we want to also say map XX equals. Yeah, cool. All right, so inside this script, again, we are just filling out the parameters and the variable names that it wants. And we have this line as well, which is new to add. But all of this code inside the actual curly brackets, all of the code is just a paste that we already have. And then this last line here, we want to return map XX, so we can continue to add to our script, to our map, sorry. So once you've got all that done, this is what it should look like. And then, just to make sure we haven't broken anything, we're going to run the game. You could do this after the fit stuff as well, but running the game should still give you a working map like this. Okay, so there is one more thing to add in the create event. Temp list is just going to be a list that we overwrite with our maps, like building list or field list. And then if we go into the step event inside our create Battlescape region, we have some things to do. First of all, BSW, so Battlescape width, Battlescape height. Previously there was just set to 5. Now that we have an array with data, we want to get our values from that data, so that's what we've changed there. We have a new region to clear and update our fields and buildings lists. So this for loop is just going to clear all the lists from our map types array. This array holds those lists. And then we're going to fill each of those lists with the relevant maps from the biome we are using. So for as many maps as there are in the biome list, get the map, get the map type, get the list, and add the map to the list. We also have a new variable called buildings placed. This is going to track how many buildings we have placed. Pretty straightforward. And then this region is a little bit more than we have done so far. It's literally just the code to add buildings to our Battlescape randomly. So when we first create a map, when we first create a Battlescape, it's going to be empty, and we're going to be picking random positions within the Battlescape to see if we can place a building. Our other code, we start at the top left and work our way down. We don't want to do that with buildings because we're always going to have buildings in the top left and nowhere else. So that's a bit of an idea of what we're going to be doing now. So building maps is the list that holds all of our buildings. If there are actually buildings to place, then we're going to have our building code. Otherwise, we are just going to say, yes, we've already placed as many buildings as we have. I thought I would need this, but we don't. So you don't really need this code, but it's not a bad idea to set this to this value, just in case you make changes to it yourself, like after here. So, however, if we do have buildings to place, then for as many buildings as we want, we're going to have this region here. So all of this is inside the region. So the first thing we want to do is copy our building maps to our temporary list. As long as we have buildings in this list, we're going to get one at random and then try and place it a number of times. So here we are grabbing a random building from that list and deleting it from the list, so we don't try and place the same one, for example, because we may not be able to place it, so that's why we're deleting them. Turn our map string into a list of grids, get a grid string and turn it into a grid. This is so we can get the dimensions of that grid. That's what all this is. That's what all of this is for. So we can get the dimensions. You might recognize this code. It's pretty much from the code we used to make the Battlescape that we had in the create event at the start of this episode. So we have a variable called attempts. Because we are picking random coordinates, we don't want to do it too many times, especially because we're in 3 while loops. So we're only going to allow ourselves 20 times to try and place a particular building before we try and get another one. Because remember, we could have 10 buildings, so we could have like 200 attempts for every building that we're trying to place. So that's why we don't want to have too many attempts. So as long as attempts is less than 20, we're going to pick some random coordinates in the grid. We have BSW minus H pieces and BSH take away V pieces because if a building is like 2 horizontal pieces, we don't want to pick the very rightmost cell because it's never going to fit. So that's why we have these 2 bits of code there. We're going to make use of our does it fit script with this. So reuse that code. If it fits, then great. Use our second script and then break out of this loop. If we get to excuse me, if we get to 20 attempts, then try that again. So if it fits, then use our second script. Otherwise, increase our attempts. And then after 20 attempts, this won't run anymore anyway. So that's that region. And then this is the end region for this. And then, so we should have all of the code there. just in case I didn't explain this bit. After we've done this, we may have we've tried every single building and tried 20 times for each to place it. If we were never able to place it, then just increase buildings placed by 1, and eventually this will become true and we'll break out of it. So this is the matching, this is the closing bracket for this curly bracket here. And then down here, so let's close this region now. Down here, so we're now in the area where we're filling in the rest of the Battlescape, like our old code. However, we want biome list to be only the fields, because we've got as many buildings as we want now. So now we just want to say, okay, only add fields, try and fit fields into the remaining gaps. So that's what we're doing here. So let's run the game. You see we have 2 buildings. If I go into the create event and I change the number of buildings we want to 4 and run the game again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings. So you can see how that works. Imagine if you have you have some kind of campaign, and then okay, it's time to go on a mission. All you have to do is set these different values and you get different maps. Okay, so step 9, again inside our create Battlescape. So right here we're gonna have it's not a new region. All we've done is after our buildings code, so this is our buildings code, buildings region, the end of it. After here we have this code, but it looks kind of a bit messy and it's hard to tell what it is. So let's just put it into a region. So I've added this line here, and if you click on this bracket, scroll down, find its partner, put the end region just after it, and if you minimize it, it should look like this. And now let's display our values in the draw GUI. So make a draw GUI region, draw GUI event, and inside it we're gonna have the vertical alignment for the text in the top. Draw X is going to be the middle of the GUI. For as many stats as we have, set the draw Y to I times 20. If I equals selected BS data, which is what we use to track which stat we're on, remember, then draw that stat in lime. Otherwise, draw it in white. Then draw the text to the left of the center. So this is going to be, it'll show the biome and then the width and height, but in text. And then to the right of the center, we're going to draw the actual value of that. So FA right will draw up to the right, and FA left will draw from the left. So if we run the game, you can see we have some variables, and the next thing we'll do is the ability to change them, which should be fun. Okay, so we're going to the step event of our Battlescape object. In our ready state this time, we're going to rename our region to change BS parameters. Inside there we have 3 regions. The first one is change our selected stat. So if you press down, then we want to increase. This is changing which stat is selected as opposed to changing its value, just in case that wasn't clear. So if we press down, then increase this variable. If we press up, then decrease it. If we press down and selected BS data is greater than or equal to BS stats.last, then we just want to reset our variable to 0, so we can have like a cyclical menu system. And then if we press up, decrease it like I said, and then if it becomes less than 0, set it to BS stats last -1. Then to actually change the value, we're going to be using left and right. If we press left, then from our 2D array, decrease the actual value, and we want to make sure that we don't go below our actual value. So if actual value is less than our min, sorry, I meant to say we want to make sure we don't go below our minimum value. So if our actual value is less than our min, then just set our actual value to our min. The same thing for the pressing right and increasing actual value. If the actual value is greater than our maximum value, then set our actual value to our minimum value. And the third region generates a new Battlescape. So if you press enter, set BS biome to our new biome, and update the maximum value for maps to use, which is going to be however many maps there are in the biome that we want to use, and then set the state to create. So if we run the game, we can now test this. So pressing up and down, do this. If I want to change the width and height of the map, press enter. Get this, still getting 2 buildings. What about if we want to change to the first biome? I don't think there's any buildings. Press enter. Let's change the height and width back to 5. Back to cities again. Add some buildings in. There we go. And then finally, if we go into the Create Battlescape region again, we scroll down to just after line 30 where we're setting H. Then we have a couple of new lines of code, and here, this line here is going to check to see if we actually want to use a single map as the whole Battlescape. So if map to use actual is greater than -1, that means we want to use a particular map. And we may as well just use an existing script, scr load map, and then we're going to pass it the biome that we want to use. We're going to want to pass it the map number, which is stored in this 2D array, and the list of grids that we want to save everything to. So it's that straightforward. And then here we have the closing bracket for this line, and we have an else as well, and everything from here, so all of these regions and stuff is going to be inside this else statement, and this end region here is here. So you have this region and then state equals BS ready. We scroll down, you can see the closing bracket that we just did is just a few lines above state equals BS ready, like that. So if we run the game again for a final time, and if I change this value to 0, then it uses the first map. If I change it to 1, 2, 3, these are all the city maps that I have made, and then go back to -1 and we get a regular random map. And that's it. Thank you so much for your patience with this series. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will catch you next time. Bye for now.